Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency and worldwide payment system. It is the first decentralized digital currency, as the system works without a central bank like FRB or single administrator. The network is peer-to-peer and transactions take place between users directly, without an intermediary. These transactions are verified by network nodes through the use of cryptography and recorded in a public distributed ledger called a blockchain. Bitcoin was invented by an unknown person or group of people under the name Satoshi Nakamoto and released as open source software in 2009. He is anarchist that extremely sensitive about somehow being put at a disadvantage by government. He was careful enough to contract only the closest peer via email from first development to now. The programmer with real name, Satoshi Nakamoto, was an ordinary programmer who was completely away from Bitcoin, and the real developer is still anonymous. We will never know who has given this grace to mankind. Hacking is virtually impossible because transaction books are stored on multiple users' servers across a global range based on blockchain technology. As of February 2015, over 100,000 merchants and vendors accepted Bitcoin as payment. Research produced by the University of Cambridge estimates that in 2017, there are 2.9 to 5.8 million unique users using a cryptocurrency wallet, most of them using Bitcoin. The anarchist developer was right. The US government has begun to crack down on Bitcoin-related personnel and things, like stock market and developer, one by one. They are suspected of tax evasion, money laundering, and terrorist revenue inflows. But government can't actually control the market. Cryptocurrency jumped into the biggest speculation bubble in human history. It is understandable to instinctively feel rejection in the Bitcoin. But economic experts analyzed speculative bubbles to grow and popularize as money. It can be seen as a rebellion against past banks, which had blown up bubbles, disintegrated developing countries, and eroded capital at low prices. Along with Bitcoin, there is popular one, called Ethereum. Bitcoin naturally can't program as government's intention. It is a thoroughly anarchist currencies that cannot be engaged by a third party. That is why government hate this system. Because they have owned the history with controlling currency. But Ethereum is quite different. Ethereum is a distributed computing platform for implementing smart contract functionality based on blockchain technology. Bitcoin, Ethereum both are blockchain. Let's look at its technologic difference. The Bitcoin is based on the blockchain technique described above. It is digital money. If you buy some Bitcoin, the record is stored in blocks distributed to computers. So it cannot be hacked, it cannot be controlled by outside interests like the US government, it is transparent. Ethereum technology provides smart contract. Unlike Bitcoin, this is a programmable blockchain. Bitcoin is virtual currency, but Ethereum is a platform that can realize a self-certified system of existing bank. In short, it is easy to understand. Compare with vending machine. If you put $1 in it, the money will be turned into cola, that is automatically agreed according to predetermined conditions and contracts. Bitcoin is a coin, but Ethereum is a programmable platform. Bitcoin is a payment technology, but Ethereum is a comprehensive system that can be allowed from government to intercept and trade personal information at any time. And to tracking personal information at any time under and can regulate conditions in the system they called lawful. Now, the central bank are making Fedcoin based on the Ethereum technique. They are planning to replace Bitcoin with Fedcoin. Fedcoin doesn't even exist yet, and yet the Washington Post is already hyping it as the primary cryptocurrency that we will be using in the future. Do they know something that the rest of us do not? We want cryptocurrencies to stay completely independent, and we definitely do not want the Federal Reserve and other global central banks to start creating their own versions. Because of course once they create their own versions they will want to start restricting the use of any competitors. The one thing that could derail the cryptocurrency revolution faster than anything else would be interference by national governments or global central banks. Unfortunately, now that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are getting so much attention, it is inevitable that the powers that be will make a move. The Washington Post published an opinion piece by Professor Campbell R. Harvey of Duke University that was entitled "Bitcoin is big, but Fedcoin is bigger." These days, there is an agenda behind virtually everything that the Washington Post publishes, and so it is not just a coincidence that they have published an article with FedCoin in the title. Here is how that article begins. Over the past few weeks, investors have been flocking to Bitcoin, the digital currency whose value has soared by about 2,000% in the past year alone. And while many economists are cautioning against excitement about Bitcoin, which is caught up in what may be one of the biggest speculative bubbles in history, it's important to note just how revolutionary the technology may be. Indeed, the technology underlying Bitcoin could fundamentally change the way we think of money. Professor Harvey goes on to explain that it is only a matter of time before paper money is phased out, and that some version of FedCoin is inevitable. But it doesn't have to be. The Federal Reserve and other global central banks could just leave us alone and allow us to create our own currencies. The cryptocurrency revolution is moving along just fine, and there is no need for any sort of interference. But we have a feeling that the powers that be will eventually manufacture some sort of a cryptocurrency crisis if one does not happen naturally. In the aftermath, they will attempt to introduce some version of FedCoin, and many in the general public will be very thankful for the solution that the government has provided. And that day may be closer than we think. In fact, the US government has already invested millions into cryptocurrency research. To add fuel to the fire, the US government has been rigorously studying Bitcoin for about 2 years now. And instead of fighting Bitcoin, the feds seem poised to wipe out the US dollar by creating their own digital currency. The National Science Foundation, a US government agency that supports and funds research, has awarded $3 million to 3 US universities for wide-ranging cryptocurrency research. Cornell, the University of Maryland and the University of California Berkeley will focus on developing new cryptocurrency systems that, according to principal investigator Elaine Shih, will address pain points attributed to Bitcoin and other existing networks. The Federal Reserve is far from alone. Other global central banks are doing their own research, and the Bank for International Settlements says that all central banks may eventually need their own cryptocurrencies. The following comes from CNBC. Central banks may one day need to issue their own cryptocurrencies, the Bank for International Settlements said in its latest quarterly review. Whether or not a central bank should provide a digital alternative to cash is most pressing in countries, such as Sweden, where cash usage is rapidly declining, the Sunday report said. But all central banks may eventually have to decide whether issuing retail or wholesale, central bank cryptocurrencies, makes sense in their own context. This is going to be a critical phase for the cryptocurrency revolution, because the people of the world are going to have to make it exceedingly clear that they do not want central bank cryptocurrencies. Central bank cryptocurrencies would simply be an extension of the current debt-based system that is systematically enslaving humanity. The thing that makes cryptocurrencies so great is the fact that they are not debt-based and they are allowing humanity to express independence from the current system. As existing fiat currencies fail, we want there to be independent cryptocurrencies that people can use as an alternative. And we don't have to just imagine what that would look like. In fact, it is already happening in Venezuela. But in Venezuela, the collapse of the Bolivar has forced locals to turn to alternatives like Bitcoin and local community-issued currencies with fixed exchange rates. The rapid erosion of the Bolivar's value made everyday transactions like buying groceries and paying cabbies untenable. Customers had to pay with large, cumbersome stacks of bolivars that were difficult to transport. Patricia Lea, a Venezuela-based reporter, tweeted a photo of the 5,000 bolivars, the maximum amount she was able to withdraw from an ATM in Caracas. They're worth around 5 cents. Leah stated that she had waited 20 minutes in line to obtain 5 cents in hyperinflated currency worth little to no value, according to CCN. Even though Bitcoin transactions can take hours, even days, to settle, local merchants have readily embraced the digital currency. This is a revolution that has the potential to completely change the global financial system, but we have a feeling that global central banks will never let it get that far. The current system funnels literally trillions of dollars to the very top of the food chain, and the elite are going to jealously guard their golden goose.